Now, under the label, let me just go ahead and hop right back to username. What I want to do is I want to add that input section, that section where the user can type text. So go ahead and create the shell for that right now. Now, what type of section or form element is this? Well, it's just a section where the user can type text. The class equals input, and that's just for styling purposes. Now, each one of these elements is going to have an ID and a name. So the ID is equal to username, and the name is going to be equal to username. Now, what we're going to do is we only want to allow the user to type in 20 characters in here because we don't want them to have usernames of like 150 characters long. So go ahead and there we go. There's a property called max length that you could pass into XHTML, and it pretty much, if the user tries to type more than 20 characters, then it's not going to type anymore. So we give it a max length of 20, and that only allows the user, like I said, to type in 20 characters, no more. So now the only other thing I want to do is I want to add the hint. Now the hint, if you remember whenever we were styling in CSS, whenever you hover over a field, it has the option of popping up a hint or not. You can have a hint or you can't have it. So for example, username and passwords have hint, but email doesn't have a hint. And this is just, a little tip that you can give the user in order to clear things up. So let's go ahead and make it a paragraph, and I'm going to name the class hint. That's what we styled it as. And let me just go ahead and end my paragraph so I don't forget. And the hint for this, let's just say 20 characters maximum, and we might as well tell them letters and numbers only. I think that's appropriate for usernames. So there you go. There is the very first field. Now let's go ahead and hop down to email. Now for email, let's go ahead and just steal this baby right here. Now email is also pretty much the same input, where the type is text, the class is input. Now the ID and name instead of username is going to be email and email. Now the max length, let me just go ahead and set that as 80 right now. To be honest, I have no idea anyone with an email of longer than 80, but if we find that some people are complaining because they have emails longer than 80 and they can't sign up, we can just change that later on, really simple. So I actually don't want to add a hint for email because, you don't want to say like letters and numbers only because it's pretty obvious that, I don't know, you really don't need a hint for email. But the last thing that we do need to worry about is this password field. Now for this password field right here, we already went ahead and we made the label. So the next thing is the input section. So let me go ahead right up to the username and steal their input. And right under label, input. Now check it out. For password, you actually don't want the type of text, you actually want the type of password. Now whenever you do this and you type in your password, it's gonna type little asterisks, so like nobody sitting next to you can see what you're typing in. So the class is of course input, the ID and the name, password, password. And for the password, let me just go ahead and give it a max length of 20 as well. And for the hint, let me just go ahead and copy this hint, because it's going to be kind of the same. Now the hint for the password field is 20 characters maximum. We won't say letters and numbers only because, hey, if you want to throw a dollar sign or an @ sign or something in your password, then go ahead and feel free. Now the last thing that we need to do, and I should have done this before. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and finish off my form before I add the last thing. Before I add that button, I just want to go ahead and put that last ending form tag. Now, of course, the last element that we need to add is that button. The button to submit the form. Now, we already styled a class called button, so we have to remember to use that whenever we use the form. Now, whenever you're working in a form and you want to add a button, you just go ahead and add an input, but the type is equal to submit. Now, whenever you press this, HTML knows that this is the button to submit the form. Now, we might as well give it a name equal to submit and an ID equal to submit I always like to fill out name and ID, good housekeeping. Now, of course, the last thing I want to do, well, second to last thing, is I want to go ahead and set the class equal to button, because whenever I do this, that's what's going to make the button look pretty. The default button really isn't that pretty, and we spent all that time, styling the button, so might as well use it. And the last thing, and I for real mean it this time, is the value of your button. Now, the value of the button is basically the text that you want to appear on the button. So basically, the text for this button is going to say submit. For the search button, it'll say search. For the login button, it'll say login. We could go ahead and make a register, but I don't know, submit just sounds a little bit better. So actually, you know what? I think we're good. I mean, what we did is we went ahead and we created all the header and search code with one line. Then we added the image on the left hand side, and on the right hand side, I probably have a couple errors somewhere in here, but I'll find that when I test it. So in the next tutorial, what we're going to do is, now that we created a form, we need to go ahead and handle the information in the form. So that's where you have to look forward to in the next tutorial. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you then.